Last week it was a working group. This week it's a ministerial inquiry that's been announced by the government. It'll look at problems with the school property upgrades, which Prime Minister Christopher Luxon says are unrealistic and unaffordable. Here is the Prime Minister at his press conference yesterday.
Quite frankly, our government has inherited a school property system that I think is bordering on a crisis.
Now, as I watched, I got a case of political deja vu because I'd heard that before from the previous government. Ardern in 2018, I've got the press release here, she said her government had inherited a decade of neglect when it came to school classrooms. And even Hipkins, he was the Education Minister and he became the PM, he referred to it like this last year.
We did inherit a run-down school property portfolio, ageing run-down classrooms that were not fit for learning and in many cases were overcrowded.
So who is right? Is this just another case of political blame seesaw? Joining us now is the Prime Minister himself, Christopher Luxon. Thank you very much for your time this morning. What's going on here? The last government said they inherited the mess. Now you're saying the same. Who's right?
Yeah, look, I mean, since we've come to government, what we've discovered is there's huge amounts of fiscal, cliffs and holes across the finances of New Zealand. We see projects that have had massive cost overruns. We've seen intentional underinvesting, things like Farmac and school lunches not properly funded. And we've also seen really poor delivery of projects where hundreds of millions of dollars have been spent. Auckland Light Rail, Tipu King emerges that actually haven't delivered. And what's happened here is, before Christmas we heard about 20 schools, and then there was 250 schools, and now there's 350 schools that actually have capital works underway or new school buildings being developed and built for them or in the process of being built. And essentially, the money being put aside for those builds that have been promised to those schools, often with construction about to start, all of a sudden it's not there. And so all we're saying is, look, we've got to get to the bottom of that because clearly there's a challenge there where actually schools have been promised something and it's actually not being able to be delivered because the funding isn't in place. And so what we're doing is having a short, sharp, surgical team come in, outside, quickly get to the problem, have an answer in May, and actually set up a way going forward so we don't have this problem dealing with this going forward. So
how does this money just evaporate? You said they approved these projects and stuff. There's 350 of these projects. They've been approved.
Yeah.
And the money, I'm guessing, has been budgeted, but it just dries up. Who's responsible for these projects going either over budget or not having a budget?
Yeah, so basically in this case there's 350 schools that we can see at this point that have actually been promised projects. They're in different stages. Some are in the design phase, some are actually ready to start construction. One of them actually was in December. They get told they're about to put shovels into the ground in February. All of a sudden the money's not there. And essentially what's happened
How is the money not there though?
Well, essentially the project was obviously not managed well. There was mission creep in terms of either the project got beyond the scope of what was originally intended. The other thing that has happened is that, as the Ministry of Education has said, lots of bespoke buildings. There's not one standard classroom in New Zealand anymore. Every school gets tailored. But essentially the government failed to actually be on top of that capital program. And so what you're seeing now is probably what will run into several $1 billion, I imagine, as actually what the gap between the expectation that's been promised to those schools and actually what funding is available to do that. So, we'll work our way through that for sure. We want to make sure we stay very invested in education. We want to make sure that we are investing in these buildings. That hasn't been a place we've wanted the ministry to make any savings whatsoever. But this is just classic Labor, which is just bad economic management. And again, whether it's been school lunches, whether it's been Farmac, whether it's been ferry, new ferries on the Cook Strait, whether it's been Auckland Light Rail, Tipu King, here we go again. Classic Labor, promising a lot and actually not putting the money in place to deliver it.
And here we go again for you as well, sort of classic Luxon, kicking the can down the road. You've kicked the can down the road with the ferries. It seems like you're going to kick the can down the road with this as well. What's going to happen to these school projects? 350 of them. You said that there's going to be cost. It's going to run into the billions in order to do them. So are you going to do them, or are you just going to say, you know what, let's just get value for money and we'll get some prefabs or something like that?
Well, we'll have to go back to it and go through each of those schools and their individual cases and either rescope those projects, maybe delay some of them. But again, that's going to be our focus of as we go. As we've found this information out, we've been moving very quickly to try and get to the bottom of it. But then we've got to ask some better, longer-term questions, which is fundamentally, who actually should be running school projects and buildings, because it is something that happens every day across New Zealand. There's always a project on the go. The question is actually, are the Ministry of Education actually the right right people to do it? Or are they better to stay focused on educational policy for our kids, for example? That would be a legitimate question to be asking. We have infrastructure like hospitals, we have infrastructure like school buildings. Is there a different way of doing it? Those are the kinds of questions we've got to get into.
Well, so you want to make like a Ministry of Works again? You want to get a Ministry of Works that's going to manage these things and do it at a good price?
No, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying to you, as part of that exercise for May, we have to start to think about, is there a different or better way of doing this? Part of it could well be we just need better management oversight. Clearly the government didn't have that beforehand. We're a government that will have good management oversight, and that's why we're bringing these issues to light as we discover them, because you've also said, on schools.
You've also said that you're going to be a government that's going to invest in education and you're going to be a government of infrastructure. But this is both of them, right? It is education infrastructure. So surely you should go ahead and just get these projects done, because there are schools that are waiting, like the Marlborough co-location project. The Papamoa School has been waiting for their new gym and their new learning centre. There's so many examples of this. Why don't you just go ahead and just do it?
Yeah, well, we all have actual schools in our electorates that are actually all suffering with this challenge. All of us have those issues as local MPs. But again, what we've got to do is get to the bottom of it and actually have good management and good oversight. You can't be in a situation where a school was promised a project, think about the Marlborough one of co-location, and then the budget essentially blows out to almost $500 million. And it turns out then the money isn't there to actually deliver the project, which is actually due to start very shortly. So, we've just got to come out and call it as it is, say that's the problem that we've inherited, that's the ugly reality of it, whether you like it or not. We're having to deal with it. We will deal with it. We want to stay invested in education. We want to stay invested in school property and school buildings. But equally, if there's abysmal management going on and very bad oversight, we're going to call that out, and actually then we're going to go change it so that we actually can manage it going forward. But again, here we go. We had a $750 million ferry project that turned into $3.2 billion.
You've got your talking points now. We haven't got time to go through your talking points, Prime Minister. We haven't got time to go through your talking points, Prime Minister. Can we please move on to?
That's the reality of it, mate.
Can we move on to the gang crackdown as well? Because yes, you campaign on it. Great, you're delivering it. But I watched a piece on the news last night, and you've got and you're pissing off the right people, to be honest. Harry Tam, he's brassed off. He's calling it a laughable PR stunt that won't work. What do you make of that?
Don't care about Harry Tam, my friend. Don't care about Harry Tam. Irrelevant.
Okay. Do you care about the Māori?
Gangs? Let's be clear about that.
Do you care about the Māori wardens? Because the chair of the Māori wardens in Opotiki came out and said that this was laughable as well, and you should stop bad-mouthing her town. Surely you need the Māori wardens on side.
Yeah, look, the Māori wardens do a great job. We really like the work that they do, and I'm sure they can help us more going forward, and I'm sure there's more that we can do with them too. But the reality is this, we've had a 51% growth in gangs, we've had a 33% growth in violent crime, and we campaigned on this. People are over it. People want to feel safe. There's stories last year that we saw of a mother and a daughter hiding in a coffee shop in the middle of the day in Palmerston North as gangs fight it out on the street. Not going to happen under this new government, and I'm sorry about that. We're going to make tough decisions, and the reality is gangs want all the rights of being Kiwis. They're not prepared to take the responsibilities, and so they cause a lot of pain and suffering to their fellow New Zealanders, and that's stopping. We're giving police the tools, another tool, more tools, what they need to be able to crack down on gangs. So, that's the reality of it. We don't believe that gangs are great for New Zealand. We don't believe gang life is good for young people, and I'm sorry, we're going to try something different, because carrying on exactly as we've been doing, exactly the same stuff, is just making the situation worse. So I'm sorry.
I'd love to know. I agree with. I think most New Zealanders would agree with you on most of those points, to be honest, Prime Minister. I'd love to get your reaction to what Te Pāti Māori said. They said that this breaches the Treaty of Waitangi, and if it overreaches into the rangatiratanga, there will be hell to pay. What do you make of that?
Oh, look, the Māori Party are prone to a lot of hyperbole and a lot of excessive statements. The bottom line is this. We have had a 50% plus growth in gang membership, period. That is not great for young people. Gangs peddle misery and suffering across many New Zealand families with respect to organised crime and drugs and intimidation and fear and violence, and that's not something we're going to tolerate. So I'm sorry, we are going to do something different. We either try something different and get a different outcome, or we just carry on doing more of the same, more increasing gang membership, more violent crime, more retail crime in New Zealand. New Zealand is not feeling safe in their homes, their businesses, their communities. So it stops, and that's what we said for the last year and a half. We campaigned on it, and now we're doing what we said we would do, and it's very simple.
Well, hopefully it works, Prime Minister. Thank you very much for your time. That is the Prime Minister, Christopher Luxon.